This is The Mint live on ZTN Prime, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance, and economics. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let's get started. Now, coming up on The Mint, the Zimbabwean economy is expected to grow by 3.5% in 2024, decelerating from 6% in 2023. Wholesale and retail sectors dominate the GDP of the country, accounting for 18% of the aggregate. The mining and agricultural sectors are major forex earners for the country. However, weakening prices of commodities and an El Nino cast a shadow on the country's economic fortunes. The official Zimbabwe dollar exchange rate, under pressure from an ever-depreciating paro market rate, lost significant ground in the last couple of days, central bank figures indicate. The local currency closed last week trading at 8,331 Zimbabwe dollars per greenback, according to official data posted on the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's website. On the power market, the Zimbabwe dollar is trading at as much as 15,000 Zimbabwe dollars against the greenback. I speak to Tatenda Nyachega, the Chief Economist for CEO Africa Roundtable. The men to be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Mint as a broadcast to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Now, I am joined on set by Tatenda Nyachega, the Chief Economist for CEO Africa Roundtable. Hello, Tatenda. Welcome to The Mint.
Thank you, Ibn. Thank you, viewers.
Fantastic. Now, of course, in conversation today, we are looking at the state of the Zimbabwean economy. We are also taking a look at a recent report by the CEO Africa Roundtable in terms of the sentiment from the industry body, as well as what to expect in the 2024 economy. Now, Tatenda, tell us about the mandate of the CEO Africa Roundtable. Who are the members and how wide is the reach of the organization?
Thank you, Ibn. CEO Africa Roundtable is a platform, or it's a regional platform, which is mainly meant to champion economic development across the African continent. And who are our members, or who are the players that are expected to be part of this platform? We are talking of CEOs and senior executives, both from the public sector and the private sector. And as we speak, we are sitting on plus or minus 500 executives which are on board on the round table. And these are 90% Zimbabweans, and we are talking of the other 10% maybe coming from within the region. The beginning of last year, which is 2023, we have seen the round table expanding its footprints with touching of chapters in Malawi, as well as in Zambia. And as we go into 2024, we are expecting to go into Botswana and other countries within the region.
Right, now let's start by let's also move on to perhaps, getting into the nitty-gritties and the teensy-weенsies of your most recent report. What is the sentiment of industry regarding the state of the economy of Zimbabwe? And also, if you can shed a bit of light in terms of how you come up with some of these reports, the consultative processes that you engage on, and how significant they are in framing the narrative that you come up with at the end of the day.
So thank you. When you look on the recent report that we have, the Business Confidence Index report that we produced, how we come up with it, basically we are looking on the insights as well as opinions or projections, but coming mainly from the CEOs as well as the senior executives. That is across the various sectors of the economy. We are talking of the mining, we are talking of agriculture, construction, wholesale, and as the report highlights, we've got responses from across the sectors. So what was the most recent outcome of it? I would say these CEOs or these senior executives, they are pessimistic. Mainly when you talk of a business confidence index, it either tells you that these people are pessimistic or they are optimistic about the economy. By optimistic, they are looking or they are seeing a favorable environment or operating environment. Well, it's by pessimistic, we are saying they are seeing a negative environment. So based on this report, the score that we got actually highlighted that we got a negative 40% or 40 points, which is a clear indication that these people are optimistic. They see a lot of negatives in the economy. And how did we? What were the key variables that we're looking at? We're looking at variables that have got to do with their own operating or own business operating environment. We also looked on sector-specific questions, which we're looking how do they view the sector that they're operating from, as well as the overall economic performance. So summing up all these responses, we got an indication that the view of the CEOs or the view of the industry going into 2024 was actually that they were pessimistic about the economy.
Right. Now let's talk about some of the trends, of course, closely linked there to, how they feel about the economy. And let's zero in on the aspect of revenue and profitability. What are some of the key trends that you noted from that report?
So from this report, you discover that we've got two sets of questions. One which was actually prospecting or looking on the actual insights moving from one quarter to the other quarter, as well as a set of questions which was actually looking on the projections of these CEOs. When it comes to the issues of combined revenue, there was optimism around combined revenue, but on the other side, when it comes to the issues of expense or of profitability, there was actually pessimism, or there were negative sentiments around profitability, mainly because when you look also on the other variables that we're capturing, there's also an element of capital or combined expenditure. There was also a projection that there's a projection, or there's likely going to be an increase in terms of the combined expenditure. So yes, they would make, or they were projecting more revenue coming on board, but actually this revenue was going to be eaten away by any increase or a projected increase in expenditure, which actually resulted in them being pessimistic when it comes to the issues of profitability or sales and profitability.
Right. Another relevant aspect is that of, a draw out from that particular report was the fact that financial instability seems to have affected the confidence of more CEOs in the country. May you shed more light a little bit on that?
So, from the set of questions that we developed for this business confidence index survey, you discover that we've highlighted, or we've categorized some of the questions where we're seeking the respondents to give the impact of these specific variables, where financial instability is one of the key variables. And I think by financial instability, we're looking on the issues to do or to delve around issues of exchange rate, inflation, and these were some of the key issues that were actually highlighted by these respondents, that instability have got actually a huge impact in terms of their planning in their day-to-day business operations. So definitely it revolves around the issues of how, I think you highlighted from the beginning that premium, 50% premium that is existing between the parallel market as compared to the official exchange rate. That actually have got an impact in terms of how the businesses operate, because definitely this is not something which is constant.
We will touch a little bit more on that particular subject, especially in the second half of this particular show. Let's talk about the aspect of capital expenditure. You were talking about expenditure in the recurrent sense. So recurrent would speak to the normal expenses that businesses incur on a day-to-day basis. But there is also another subject, capital expenditure, which looks at the investments that businesses are making in a particular economy in as far as their operations are actually concerned. Let's talk about capital expenditure here, Tatenda, and some of the trends that you're noticing. Is there an appetite for capital expenditure in these macroeconomic waters?
So given the business environment that we're talking about, where businesses, and by businesses we're talking of, these are investors who are looking at the environment that they're operating in. And when you ask me to say whether there's that appetite to invest or to increase capital, that is capital in the sense of investing within their businesses, the environment that doesn't allow these CEOs, or that doesn't allow the businesses to expand or maybe to increase their capital or their money in this environment that they're operating in. I will give, for instance, recently we were just having a few questions around, I think there was a statement or a lot of individuals or even institutions received some messages from banks where they were being told that they are actually going to be taxed, the IMTT tax 2% on the FCA accounts for something, or that's more like backdating a tax. Actually, once you talk of that, then someone will have a question to say, am I going to invest in an environment where laws or policies change overnight? And this is something that actually caught them unaware. So this environment that they are operating in actually limits in terms of the investment that they are supposed to input into their own business, or even venture into new perspectives. So yeah, definitely the element of capital expenditure, when you talk of capital expenditure, if it is increasing investment by these businesses, is actually limited because of the environment that they are operating in.
Let's talk about the structure of this economy for a little bit, in as far as it being dominated by the wholesale and retail sectors, which account for 18% of the country's GDP, and some have named the Zimbabwean economy, a retail economy or supermarket economy, to put it across that way. What does this speak in terms of the overall structure and prospects for the Zimbabwean economy?
So definitely that speaks to our nature, or the nature of our economy, where we are saying this is more of a dual economy, where we've got the formal economy and the informal economy, but mostly dominated by the informal economy. So when you talk of the wholesale economy, or the wholesale and retail dominating, that tells you the stature, or that tells you the state of our country as we speak. And I agree that there's a huge transition, where we used to know our manufacturing sector dominating, or maybe things being more aligned on the formal side. But as we speak currently, most of these issues, or most of once you, or even if I were to ask you, if you want to buy something today, where do you go? You have to go downtown. So that transition, or that informalization, or that transition where we've got dominance of the wholesale and the retail sector. And this wholesale and retail sector, if you look at them, they are not more aligned to the formal sector, but we are talking of the informal sector. That just tells you the state of the economy, that we are more of an informal economy than a formal economy.
How worried is the formal side of the economy about the informal sector?
Definitely, I think that's a huge, or that's a place of huge concern for the formal sector. When you talk of this emerging and that the ever increasing informal sector, because definitely we are talking of business being. I will give, for instance, currently as we are talking, we are sitting on 80% transactions being in USD terms, and if you try to link the number of transactions that we are talking about, or being in USD terms, and you link it to the exchange rate that we're talking about, because most of these formal institutions, or wholesales and retails, they operate on the official exchange rate, which makes the products and services that they offer more expensive when you put them in terms of the US terms. So this definitely means the customers, or the clients, or the customers in general, they always weigh the options. Where do they get value for their money? They only get value for their money when they go to the informal sector. So definitely, in terms of the business and in terms of demand of the products, people, they go where they see more value in terms of the money that they have. And where do they see this value? They see it in the informal sector, because that tallies with the environment that we're living in. So definitely that becomes a threat when you look, or maybe when you take it from the angle or from the view of the informal wholesalers and retailers.
Now, still to come on the mint, the Zimbabwe dollar is trading at premiums of up to 50% on the parallel market, of course, against the United States dollar. We'll look at what this means for local business and how this affects the progression of the Zimbabwean economy. The mint will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
In a land where traditions run deep, where the soil holds the secrets of generations, and where dreams are sown alongside seeds, a new generation emerges. Welcome to Young Seeds. Get ready to embark on a journey like no other as we shine a spotlight on the dynamic and inspiring young farmers in the heartland of Zimbabwe.
I want to do it because plants will die, plants will get infected by diseases.
I tried to do mixed farming, that is also putting tomatoes. I have half a hectare of tomatoes.
Every 40 days, it has to be giving birth.
Produce a good quality fruit size. Calves are kept in different pens, basically so that they don't spread diseases to each other.
My name is Tariwa Sikauke. I'm a rabbit farmer.
These young farmers are revolutionizing traditional practices, embracing technology, and finding sustainable solutions that will shape the future of agriculture. So, let's get our hands dirty.
You're watching The Mint live on ZTN Prime as a broadcast to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Eben Mabunda. Now, I am with Tatenda Nyachega, who is the Chief Economist for CEO Africa Roundtable. And of course, we're looking into the teensy-weensies of the Zimbabwean economy in terms of the private sector and what we can expect this 2024. Now, Tatenda, just to start by in this segment by making reference to some of the aspects of your most recent report. In your survey, you captured that respondents' opinions, and as far as senior executives and as far as CEOs in the country, about the likely impact of the 2024 fiscal and monetary policies on the overall economic performance. 46% projected a positive impact of these policies on the overall economy, while 43% were not expecting any good from the fiscal and the monetary policies. Can you shed more light on that?
So, the good thing, just like I highlighted, that the report that we're talking about was conducted before the pronouncement of the 2024 national budget.
Right.
And currently we are actually in the process of capturing the last quarter or our most recent business confidence index, where definitely we'll get more responses when it comes to the impact of the fiscal policy and monetary policy on the business environment, or how they view the business, these CEOs and senior executives view the impact of these policies on their operating environment. But basically looking at the responses that we got, it was almost 50-50, where some respondents felt that definitely these policies that are being put in place, either from the Treasury or from the Central Bank, have got a positive impact in terms of their operations and in terms of their businesses. Well, it's almost 50% were of actually a different view, where they felt actually these policies have got a huge result or produce a huge negative impact in terms of their operation or operating environment. But definitely, I'm sure the narrative will likely change when you factor in the recent fiscal policies that have been, that is the 2024 national budget. We are likely to get a different perspective given on how, on general, when you move around the market, there were different perspectives or responses regarding to the fiscal budget.
On to perhaps another subject. We'll circle back just shortly on some of what you touched on. The twin devils, inflation and currency instability. On the formal market, the Zimbabwe dollar is fetching 8,300. On the parallel market, the Zim dollar is fetching 13, 14, 15 thousand Zimbabwe dollars to the greenback. What is the impact of that on the operations of business in Zimbabwe?
Definitely, once you talk of exchange rate instability or the financial sector instability, it creates a huge challenge from two perspectives. It creates a challenge in terms of the production. Remember, in terms of these businesses, they get or they buy some inputs, or in the production line or the value chain. It starts with companies acquiring some inputs from or raw materials from different suppliers or sources. Then it means once you have got that exchange rate instability, then it creates a challenge which actually results in an increase or fluctuating, or I would call it a perpetual fluctuations in terms of the production costs. That's number one, or that's the first perspective. But on the other perspective, it also becomes a challenge in terms of coming up with the pricing strategies for businesses. I think we used to have a talk where you could go into a shop, then you get a USD price, then you get a bond note price, and you get an RTGS, or maybe by RTGS we're referring
6-7
to
values for the same
products. So that's the scenario that it creates. Once you talk of financial sector instability, and especially when it's related to the exchange rate, then we talk about all those challenges. And sometimes I think we have ever been talking about inflation. And this inflation, sometimes you will see that it correlates, or it relates to the exchange rate. Once we have that volatility in terms of the exchange rate, it is actually going to also have an impact in terms of the pricing. They will also increase following the changes that are happening. We are talking about that premium, 50% premium. But if you also look on the parallel market, it's not long ago when you were talking about 10,000, but today we're talking about 14,000, 15,000 per greenback. So that actually also reflects in terms of the pricing strategy that these businesses face.
What then are the recommendations of the CEO Africa Roundtable in as far as the currency conundrum is concerned?
So I think there've been a long call to the central bank and the treasury to stick to the principles. By principles, we are talking about you need to maintain the fiscal deficit. And sometimes when you go around these issues, the element of money printing, once you talk, or maybe you have an analysis of the demand supply growth for the past 2 or 3 years, you see that there was actually an increasing trend. So definitely when you talk about the central bank, its mandate or role is to also try to manage inflation, try to manage the exchange rate. And how do they do that? They do that by also ensuring that the printing of money is also stabilized or also monitored, so that at least it doesn't result in an induced inflation, or maybe all these exchange rate fluctuations that we're talking about. Then from the fiscal side, there's also a need to also maintain. I think we used to have one former minister who talked about eating what you kill. So you don't go beyond your means. So what it simply means is we need to limit the fiscal deficit, or the budget deficit. So that's the core. So in terms of the recommendations, it's all about the central bank and the treasury, or the finance ministry, maintaining or living within its means. I think that way it will actually create an environment that will definitely, I think you can tell by just where we have got, I think we've got a few months back where we attained some stability. This stability was maintained because there was actually sanity from those two key institutions that we're talking about.
Right, now let's talk about the tax reforms that were introduced by the Chief of Treasury, Professor Muthuli Ncube, and how they have impacted business. You are in constant touch, of course, with the private sector. You represent the private sector. What sort of feedback have you obtained at this point? Bearing in mind, of course, that we had the presentation of the budget. We then saw Parliament, taking to contest some of the issues, and we also saw the private sector being consulted started, and at the end of the day, we had some shifts in terms of the sugar tax, some shifts in terms of the toll fees, and a whole lot of issues. As at this point, what sort of sentiment is out there on the market in terms of the shifts that were introduced by Treasury?
So when you talk of these shifts, we are talking of these taxes. There were a lot of taxes, and I think you quoted the sugar tax. We talked about the 15% from a zero rated. When we talk of the meats, all meats,
the VAT.
Yes. So what it simply means is a tax. It's a cost into production. Then once you talk of a cost into production, then it means our competitiveness I'm talking from the private sector perspective, or from it have got a huge bearing in terms of the competitiveness of our products and services that we are offering. So what it simply means is then when you compare the products and services that we are offering as a country compared to other products and services that will be coming from the region, then we are definitely out of the market. So these taxes that's one element that in terms of the competitiveness of products and services, we become outclassed by the products which are coming from the region or even beyond the region. Then number two, all those taxes, when you analyze or maybe when you go through the value chain, then you discover that they will definitely promote informalization. So those are the two key issues that we can do. Already we are crying, or there's a huge cry in terms of the informal sector, where the government is trying to make efforts to formalize the informal sector. But by these taxes, some of these taxes, definitely they will have an impact in terms of increasing the informal sector. I will give, for instance, we're having this analysis where we talk about the 15% VAT on all meats. That will mean that some of the, for instance, let's talk about cow, the cattle production,
right,
where we used to have around, I think I heard about figures around 350,000 cattle per year going through the formal abattoirs. But by introducing this system, then it means the informal sector is not mainly impacted by these taxes. So what it only means is that most farmers, they will channel their cattle through the informal abattoirs. Then in a way that will increase informal sector, and we are increasing the graveyard in terms of the formal institutions operating this environment.
Right, now tell us about the breakfast that you're having on the 25th of January, where of course you intend to bring multiple stakeholders. May you tell us who will be present and what to expect from the particular meeting?
All right, so in terms of the executive breakfast meeting that we are going to have on the 25th of January, it's structured in two ways. The first way, or the theme around this executive breakfast, is to do with prospecting the economic and business outlook for Zimbabwe going into 2024. We know we are already into 2024, but we want to inform the strategies of businesses. We want to inform strategies of different stakeholders by outlaying by outlaying the economic outlook. So we are definitely going to bring in some experts or economists on board. So we have a panel of economists, and these economists definitely will give how they view or how they project the Zimbabwean economy going into 2024. Then on the other hand, we'll also have a panel of ministerial representatives. We're expecting some representatives from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Finance, Central Bank, so that they also give us their outlook in terms of the policy outlook with respect to their respective ministries.
Tatenda Nyachega, the Chief Economist for the CEO Africa Roundtable. Well, that's a wrap on Monday's episode of The Mint. Do catch us, of course, on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network, as well as at ZTN Prime. And of course, remember to watch us every weekday at 2 p.m. Central African time for the juiciest business stories in Zimbabwe, on the continent and beyond. I'm Ibn Mabunda, the Money Man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good day.